Hey guys, welcome back to the High School Dish. I know it's been a while since I've actually done a podcast episode, but now I'm back. Hopefully, I'll be getting in episodes weekly and I'm more consistent with it. But, anyways, so today it's just gonna be me. There's no guest stars or anything like that because I am going to be talking about my anxiety, and I think it's very important for me to talk about it because mental health is so super important. And whenever I was going through like my anxiety journey, I guess, there wasn't a lot of people talking about it. And now that mental health is like super important, now that like anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, like those type of mental disorders and illnesses are on the rise, it's important. So today I am going to be talking about my anxiety. I have filmed this episode 2 times already. No, no. 3 times already. And I just never really like feel like I get out what I want to say. So hopefully this is the final time I actually film my episode. So first I'm just going to start talking about when and how I got diagnosed. So freshman year, it was all COVID. So we were inside our houses all day long and just on Zoom, whatever. It made me very lazy. And I was lazy in the first place, but I was lazy but motivated. So at the end of my freshman year, our school was doing like those hybrid days. It was first A B C days, and then it turned into A B days because our school is just very big. But we were doing I think it was Romeo and Juliet in English class, and if everybody knows like Shakespeare, it's very confusing, the language, because it was done so long ago, and also Shakespeare like just had his own language, I feel. So it was like very confusing. And since everything was on Zoom, even my teacher was on Zoom. Like she wasn't even in the building when we were doing those hybrid days. It was just like confusing in general. So I just didn't do the assignment that came along with that unit. And I knew that if I don't do the assignment, I was gonna get a bad grade. But once I saw it, that's when I was like, it was horrible. Um, I had my first panic attack or anxiety attack or whatever it was, because anxiety attacks and panic attacks are like totally different things. I know what it is on paper, but whenever it just feels the same. So I call them mental attacks because I feel like it's just easier to call them that. So I had my first mental attack. I didn't know what was going on. Um, it lasted for like 30 minutes, I would say. It felt like I was dying. I was crying uncontrollably. I was hyperventilating so bad. Like I couldn't breathe. It felt like something was on my chest, and I I couldn't move. It was just so bad. So that's when we knew that like I needed to get help. And a week prior to this mental attack, I had a little thing at school. Like it was like the last day of school, and I was doing an AM class. So AM classes are before first period for us. So it was the end of my AM class going into first period, and we had like a little party because it was the end of the school, whatever. But then I was feeling very nauseous, and I didn't understand why, because whatever I had eaten at that party, I've always eaten, and there was like there was nothing for me to be nervous about. But I went to the bathroom and I threw up. And for people who have emetophobia, you can not watch this episode if you would like, because sometimes it can be hard to hear about someone talking about them throwing up. So just to preface that. Anyways, so I threw up in the bathroom and I had a nauseous feeling, but I also had another feeling on top of that, and that was anxiety. But at the time, I didn't know what that feeling was, so I just like brushed it off. Um, but I was gonna go to school I was gonna like leave school early because I was feeling so nauseous. But I I just let it pass because I was like, this is my last day of school. I have to ride it out. So I finished that day of school and whatever, and then my mental attack happened, and then that's when we knew that like I needed to get help. Like I needed to get therapy or something because me not getting the motivation to do any work, even though like I didn't really want to, I usually do. And then me throwing up and having this mental attack, like it was just, we knew that I needed help. So I then got a therapist like a couple weeks after that. But right before I got my therapist, I had my first job as a camp counselor at a camp that I was a camper at for about 4 years. And then, so I knew the people who were going to be working there because I enlisted some of my friends to work there, and my camp friends were working there as well. I knew the people I was working for. I knew my boss for a couple years now. I knew where it was. I knew the layout of the camp. Like I just knew the ropes of it because I was literally a camper there. So I felt comfortable. Like I didn't understand why I was feeling so much anxiety about it. But the first day of work, I woke up early. Like my body just woke me up because of the amount of anxiety I was having, and I threw up at my house. And then we were carpooling, me and my two friends were carpooling. So when they picked me up and it was the first day of work, I was like, we gotta pull over, and I threw up on the side of the road. And the thing is, I didn't have anything in my stomach, so it was literally like my body was forcing like whatever was inside my stomach out of me, and it's like a horrible feeling. So that was happening to me, and we definitely knew that we needed to get someone very soon for therapy because I could not have this happening to me every single morning. So I got my therapist. We were talking about it, whatever. I was in therapy, officially diagnosed with anxiety disorder and social anxiety. And I was just living through it. But the anxiety was overpowering me. Like I was not controlling it, especially because it was so new to me and it was so strong. I didn't know how to control it. I was learning how to control it in therapy, but again, I only had therapy. Um, I think it was once a week. Yeah, I think I started out with therapy at once a week, and then it turned into once every 2 weeks because therapists are fully booked. So many therapists are fully booked, and it's really hard to get a therapist that you're comfortable with and like. So I was lucky that I did get a therapist that I was comfortable with. But still, like I started out with like weekly just to get like my nausea under control and like the social anxiety that I was having for like work and stuff because I did have to miss like 3 days of work because I was so nauseous and I was just having so much anxiety that I just couldn't show up to work. And then there was also one time where my mom had to take me because I was running late because I was throwing up so much, and then I kept throwing up in the car. And while I was in the car like throwing up, I was like, why is this happening to me? Like I just couldn't understand why everything was like happening to me. Like why am I throwing up? Like it's not scary, but my brain was making me think that it was scary. Um, but that summer, I went through like a lot of different things. Like I had a palate expander in my mouth, which was so uncomfortable. It didn't really go with my anxiety. I'm just like that and throwing up. It was just horrible. But I was in a situation which I'm going to talk about in a different episode because I think it's a good thing to talk about and learn from. So I was in the middle of a situation that was not good for my mental health. It like kind of put me in a divide with my friends. And then I was also worried about my performance in school because I did kind of bad in my last semester, like towards the end of my last semester of like my freshman year, and I did not feel confident. I did not feel motivated to continue to do well in school. And that's what happened. The first 2 months of school was closed because we had a flood, and uh, it closed down our school because they also found asbestos. So that was really fun. Definitely not for me because every single day, or almost every single day, I would have a mental attack while I was on Zoom because I just felt stupid. I was in advanced classes, but I wasn't really learning because it was Zoom, and I'm definitely better in person. So I wasn't learning. I was doing horrible on like tests, quizzes, homeworks, and I couldn't reach out because even over email, I didn't feel comfortable enough with my teachers because again, we were on Zoom, like we were at a distance. Um, so I couldn't even email them for like help. And even when I did email like a couple of them for help and like saying that like I'm sorry I couldn't go to class because I like with one of my teachers that I was really comfortable with, I even emailed her saying that I'm sorry I can't come to class because I was having like a panic attack or something like that. Like I was crying so much I couldn't show myself in front of Zoom. Like I even have a video of it on like my Snapchat right now. Like that I just videotaped myself because I was like it's just like me saying that no, not that I'm like stupid, but like I'm just like how is this happening to me? Like why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Um that just like got some of my feelings out of there, which is good. I think that like recording yourself in that state and then like looking back at it, it's like that's how I was feeling, whatever, or like writing something down. Like when I was having that point in my life, I would either record myself or um like write down stuff in a little journal. So that like helped me. It wasn't like the biggest help, but it was something. But I would try to like email my teachers, but sometimes I couldn't. Like I felt like I couldn't, and I felt like I couldn't ask for help. I was sleeping through my classes because again, we were on Zoom. I had just done an entire year of Zoom. I was just so over it. So I'd sleep through my classes. I didn't learn anything. Um, and then we went back to school. I was terrified to go even near my teachers because how horrible I was doing for those first 2 months on Zoom. And I couldn't speak to them either, asking for help. Like, that was also part of my social anxiety. I couldn't speak to them, be like, sorry that I've been like off as a student. Like, I wasn't doing the work or whatever. Like, I've even had teachers email me, like, you have to do the work to be in this class. And I would just ignore those emails. I would probably look at those emails, cry, and then ignore them. I even drafted an email, like an I'm sorry, I'm your student email, um, and would send it to all my teachers. I didn't, which I think is like a good thing I didn't send that, because I feel like it would have been kind of embarrassing. I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. I drafted that email and I was like sobbing while I was drafting that email because I'm telling them like I'm just like a horrible student. I generally don't know what's going on with me. I'm doing horrible with my friends. I'm doing horrible in school. Like it was just really bad. And since I was doing horrible in school, I got grounded because I wasn't getting good grades. Like I failed like one of my classes for like that marking period because we have 2 semesters broken up into 4 marking periods. So I failed one of my classes for the first marking period and then I got grounded for like 2.5 months. So within that 2.5 months, I slid into a depression because I couldn't go anywhere. Even if I was in bad standings with my friends, I couldn't go anywhere. Like being grounded, like having that bad feeling of like why I was grounded, like it got me into a bad place. So I was then in a depressed state. I don't think I had depression, but I was definitely in a depressed state, and those are easy to slide into, especially if you have like pre-existing like mental disorders or illnesses, to have like another one come up. So it was just really bad, and I think that like what snapped me out of it to like probably like get that motivation, get out of that depressed state was that like my friends were all talking about colleges. They were all talking about like their good grades and then I'm here with like my D's. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like what am I actually doing with my life? I'm literally like almost failing these classes or like doing the absolute bare minimum in like these easy classes and like like generally what am I doing? So I think that like really like woke me up and be like and was like, you need to do better. So after I was done being graded, I started trying to be closer with my friends. I tried to talk to my teachers, even though that was a really big step for me. I didn't exactly do that. Um, but I would mostly email them. I mean, I still do now. Like, I hate talking to my teachers. So if I need something from them, or like I need to take my test in a testing center or something like that, I would email them. I won't go up to them because I still have that little social anxiety for that aspect. But I was able to like try to get myself out of that rut, and I did. I still have like that much of anxiety, but I was trying to do better for my junior year because I knew that year was the most important year, because that's what colleges were looking at, like those type of grades. Um, and so I was able to get like the resources that I need to be better for junior year. My mom was talking with my guidance counselor because she's like, I have no clue what's going on with my daughter. Like, is she even going to be able to go to college? Like, which I was like, okay, great. Thanks, mom. Thanks for asking if I'm actually going to get into college. But it's fine. So she was emailing my counselor, and my counselor was like, you know what, we should get the school psychiatrist involved, and I'm glad she has a therapist, so maybe we can like have some emails with her as well. So they were able to evaluate me and um, get me a 504 plan. I even saw my evaluation, which I was like, whoa. Like 2 years later, after I got evaluated, I have the evaluation in my desk, and I recently randomly like found it again, and I was reading through it, and I was like, I was this bad. Like, I was reading through my evaluations and my teacher's evaluations of me. I was like, I did not realize how bad I was. Um, but I was able to get the help I need. I got my 504 plan to make sure that I was going to do the best that I possibly can. And I am very satisfied with what I did my junior year because of the mental challenges that I was overcoming during my sophomore year and technically still junior year. Um, but it was better because I understood myself much more than I understood myself sophomore year. And I was able to overcome some of the challenges, like talking to teachers, and like my motivation, it was like coming back. Like, I was starting to enjoy school more, and I just knew it was important that year. So I am definitely satisfied and glad about what I did my junior year. Could I have done better? Yeah, I generally could have. I generally think I could have done better, but with the way that I was, I'm glad with my junior year. And then that made me excited and motivated for senior year. And so far, I've done pretty well for senior year. I mean, right now, it doesn't really matter as much because, like, all my stuff for my colleges have already like been sent out, and I've been getting decisions and all that. So it doesn't really matter as much like at this point, but I still want to do well because I still want to have that motivation for college because it's so like college is like so important for me. So like still doing well in school like now, like instead of like kind of like slacking off, it's like I need to do better because I did not have that motivation sophomore year. I was relearning to get that motivation junior year, and now that I like sort of have it senior year, like I need to keep that. Like, it's so important for me to keep that. Um So I just learned, relearned how to be a better student. And I was able to get the resources that I need, and I'm grateful for that. And sometimes resources can be hard to get. I mean, I like therapy, I didn't think that I needed, or I didn't think that I should have it because it was so expensive. Like, I didn't want my parents paying all that money. So sometimes getting the help that you need is expensive, but there's some resources out there that are free. You could always talk to a friend, you could always talk to a trusted teacher, a guidance counselor, school psychiatrist, like a random security guard. Like be vocal about what you're feeling, because keeping it all hidden and bundled up, it's just going to lead into a 30-minute mental attack where you feel like you're dying. Like, it's not gonna feel good, and it's not going to help you in the future. So that's like how I dealt with my anxiety, how I was like diagnosed with it, and then how I've been dealing with it now. It's definitely different. I do feel anxiety. I do still get nauseous, but I'm able to manage that more since I understand myself more. Although like I do have some anxiety tics. Like I do this a lot when I have like anxiety. So like I need to have like a stress ball with me so that way my palms don't get red and like have like nail indents and like break my skin. Like I just need like a stress ball. But that's I'll order it off Amazon right after this episode. But I'm still like managing it, but it's not overpowering me. Like we're coexisting. Me and my disorders are coexisting right now. Um So I just want to talk a little bit about my social anxiety because honestly, like I feel like social anxiety is pretty explanatory. Like if you go somewhere, like you feel anxiety, but it's not only that. If a lot of it is like talking to like other people, going to other places that you're unfamiliar with. Um, like I know that there's like a comfort knowing that I'm like in my home, like or in my town, like I feel comfortable. But if I go somewhere else, even if it's with some friends, I do have that sense of anxiety. Um, I do science fairs, so I feel anxiety when I have to go to a science fair, but I won't go to a science fair alone. I have to carpool with someone because I need to be with someone who is going to be there at the exact same time as me, and so we can walk in together because I cannot do things alone. And that's not like the type of thing like, oh yeah, like I can't do things alone, like I'm not independent. Like it's not like that. It's like I can be independent, but it's just like my anxiety gets too much for me that like I need somebody with me. And sometimes I have to ask like people to ask like a question for me or like order food for me or something like that. Not so much the food. I mean, I can pretty much do that myself, but um if I need help getting directions to go somewhere, I would rather drive around for 3 hours than ask a person to like help me where something is. Sometimes I do have that like wave of confidence where my social anxiety just like disappears and I'm like, okay, I can ask this person something. And I'm like, okay, great, this is a good step. But then another day, my social anxiety is too much and then I can't ask anybody anything. So my social anxiety definitely comes in waves. I've definitely gotten better with it. Um, I used to, especially if this was like sophomore year, I used to go, if I went to like a fair or football game or something like that, I would have to have like one of my friends be like my main person to go with because if I had anxiety and I felt like I was going to throw up, I can't go somewhere alone and throw up. I would have to have somebody come with me to come throw up with me. So I would always be with somebody because I just had too much anxiety about like throwing up and then anxiety about throwing up alone. So I always had to have somebody with me. And so it's not as bad as it was. But my social anxiety has definitely grown. Um, but it's something that I need to work on more than my anxiety disorder. Um, but you know it's a learning process. Dealing with like the mental challenges is a learning process and it's totally normal, it's totally fine, and people are there to help. There's always someone to help, and I just think it's just very important for other people to know that because I definitely didn't feel like I had those type of resources. I didn't have like someone tell me like, oh, you can get help, like I'll help you. Like I did have that from like obviously like my parents, um and then like my mom was like being like very like hectic with all of her emails and everything like that. um but yeah, there's always going to be someone in the world to help, and I think it's just like very important to know that because sometimes it can feel like there isn't. Um, so this is the end of my podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys like learned something from it. Um, I have my Instagram and my TikTok, which I need to upload stuff on to make them more active. Uh, but anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'm gonna go produce this episode right now.